I bet you guys did not know that there is a missing Rice Krispie member. The fourth member, Pow, joined the group and left the group in the 1950s. Hello everyone, this is Jessica, the Sporty Stitcher, back for my January update at the end of January. I'm making this video to avoid the painful game that's coming up for Packer fans. I think it's funny that at least for me, when I watch college games, especially in bowl games, you root for other Big Ten teams. I mean, obviously Ohio State and Michigan don't root for each other in bowl games, but you know, Wisconsin fans like me, we root for anybody who's in a bowl game. But as a Packer fan, you don't root for the Vikings. So I have a lot to show you today. I have whips, finishes, haul, and a short 2017 review. I didn't go into very deeply since it's already the 21st. And I actually have a shout out today. She's not on Flosstube, but she is on Cross Stitch Finish Line. And her name is Lenore Lazda. She is 90 years old, which is awesome. And she stitches large portraits of her friends and her favorite celebrities. And since I'm the youngest, pride myself as the youngest senior citizen, I thought I had to shout her out. So go to Cross Stitch Finish Line, find her out, and give her some love. Well, that was my cat running, if you heard that. So the first whip that I worked a lot in December and January is the Blackberry Lanes Table Runner. And it currently looks like this. I'll put it up here while I read my notes. I added 2 more words, the highest. I added the bottom line and more of the top line. And I added the village to the left of the shepherd and one of the palm trees. And I have a picture. As you can tell, I recently moved the scroll rods. So I do have a picture, and I will insert that right now of what it looks like all unrolled. I'm just doing that on the called for fabric with the called for color of 939. She likes a lot of 939. So the next one that I did work on was the bell pull. And the only thing that I really worked on this month was the trunk. It's not coming in good. Maybe I do have to stay in the living room. I probably would have gotten more progress, but I had to rip some out here, and I actually made an error so bad, but I'm not going to pick all of that out. And I had an error within here, so I had to fudge it. So it was a lot of reviewing the pattern and fixing the pattern, and some frogging, and then just some adjusting to make it work around it. There that currently is, with all the different stitches that repeat in the trunk. And then I did have this started the last time, but I did make some more progress on the Rosewood Manor ABCs tapestry. And there that is. Obviously it's going to be a big piece. I was trying to get myself all the way across here, but lost interest. Then I tried to get all the way around, but lost interest. So I rewarded myself with some motifs. And there are the motifs up close. So there are this right here is the midpoint. So there'll be 2 blocks here and then 2 more blocks here. So I was going to go all the way over and see what it looked like, but it didn't. And this project is reminding me of a joke that I say internally, but now I'll share it with you. I honestly believe there is 7 stages of a cross-stitch project, much like there is 7 stages of grief. So if you remember, the 7 stages of grief is shock and denial, pain and guilt, anger and bargaining, depression, upward turn, reconstruction and working through, and acceptance and hope. I think much of those steps apply for cross-stitch projects, but just in a different way. The first step is excitement, that you get a new start and you're so excited to start. And then you get denial, which I live through a lot, where you wonder if you picked the wrong floss, if you picked the wrong fabric, if you miscounted and the project's not going to fit on the fabric. So like right now in my tapestry here, I'm worried about this floss, that it's too big for the fabric. But I'm sure once I get working and complete more blocks, it will look fine. But I'm just in denial right now. And then you get into hatred, like I'm doing with my Jan Lynn spring sampler, which I'm supposed to be working on this weekend, but I think I have put 4 stitches in. That you get so tired of working on it that you don't want to see it. And then there's bargaining, where you have to work on something before I can work on something else. And then you get into acceptance, where this piece is starting to be okay, and you start to fall in love with the piece again, like seeing how beautiful the design is and how beautiful the stitches look. And then you get into the groove, which is the 6th stage, where it feels like whenever you stitch super fast, that you can't even believe what you did. And then the 7th stage is the excitement for a finish, and that can either be positive or negative. Positive if you finish it and you get to move on, and there are some that are negative that don't finish, don't put the last pieces or stitches in because they want to remember stitching the piece. So there's my little odd story for the day. So I do have this next project. It is going to lead me into my finishes, and so it's both a finish and a whip, depending on how you look at it. I'm doing the 12 Days of Christmas, and it is from the 101 Mini Christmas Motifs. It is a book from the 80s and 90s that they have reissued, and you can get it at Hobby Lobby. I would show you the cover, but ours is so well used because my mother got it when it first came out in the 90s, that our cover has fallen off, and pages have fallen out. So I just am working with the page of the 12 Days of Christmas, which is in the middle of the book, hence why it fell out of the book. So I'm currently working on this. So if you want to claim each one as a finish, I can do that. Or if I should work on it as getting them all done, then it's still a whip. The 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th days were all done in 2016. Number 5 and number 11 were done in early 2017 during the 12 Days of Christmas. And number 8 was half finished for over half a year. So I finished her up with her little pail of milk. I went back up for the goose, the little geese a-laying. And my whip part of it is the swan a-swimming. And if you guys notice on my Instagram, I've been putting this guy into pictures, And it's been kind of fun to see some people's reaction of why I have that. So now you know why. It's just something fun, like somebody's photobombing. But I've named this needle miner Binks from the Sabrina the Teenage Witch. So there is that. Don't have very many to go. And I'm getting to the point that I don't want to stitch something just for the fair. So if I finish these and they look good enough, they'll be what I'm entering this year. So, some other finishes. I made myself very proud. I stuck with a stitch along and I finished it. So there is the tiny Christmas stitch along from Amanda Designs, which was released as an advent calendar. I did do one change. The music building here, while I was stitching it, I didn't stitch the windows and I noticed it looked better as a gazebo. So I left it as a gazebo. I also have, Santa's a little different too because I added another stitch and so he's kind of slouching in the sleigh. But maybe he's done and he was tired. So I have to finish that, or FFO that. But I stuck with it and finished my first stitch along. So then after I stitched that, I started and finished another freebie from Kankak's. Sorry, I'm going to probably butcher that. Kankak's Prims and Whims, and it is called Santa Crow. And if you can see, if they're in here right, with my two new additions that I got at Shopko from being on sale, I could not resist Mr. Santa Crow. I did change him a little bit. His hat was a little bit more pointy, so I made it a bit more rounded. But there is my little Santa Crow. And another finish, which was a surprise for both me and you, was my purse project. It was one of those projects that you work on a little bit here and you work on a little bit there. So finally one day at work I looked at it and I go, oh, I'm done. It surprised me. But it is a coffee. It was a kit from, it's actually called Chalk It Up Coffee. It was a kit from Michael's and this kit sucked. The floss was a cheap brand of floss that I kept using. The pattern itself and the picture have tons of mistakes in them. It's supposed to have a checkered border around, but they don't equal out. Like there's 3 stitches here, in between 3, 3, 3, and then all of a sudden you get this in the middle, and then on one side they're 2 apart. So I don't have OCD, but that just drove me nuts. So hopefully it doesn't look too bad without the dots. Here's another example of how messed up this pattern is. They don't even have the bottom part of the E. So I had to add that to make the word fresh actually fresh. There is my purse project, which is the coffee thing. So I also have finished my ATC for January. I bended the rules just a little bit. This month's theme is science. So I did Mystery Science Theater. And the main reason I did that is I was at work and doing some work on the computer and halfway thinking of, what I could do for the science theme. And then all of a sudden in my mind popped this part of the lyric. Their experiment needed a good test case. So experiments and test case equals science, and it's Mystery Science Theater. So it's a little bending of the rules, but it's our own interpretation. And I should have checked, but I did get this pattern on Etsy, but I did not write down who I got the pattern from. There's quite a few Etsy designers that have just the silhouettes of those guys. So speaking of the ATC group, I got since I last spoke to you, I got my ATC card for December from, again, I'm probably going to say the name wrong, from Ilsa. I know it's probably just like from Frozen, but it's Santa. And I think the way I'm looking at it, she drew on the fabric, which was kind of neat. She drew these hollies, berries, and leaves. And I like how he doesn't have a pure white beard, because sometimes Santas don't have a pure white beard. And with my gift, she also sent some variegated floss, number 4520, which is Christmas colors, and some tape measure. And also a kit from a magazine and some paper strips. So as I also mentioned, I was in a Secret Santa group, and again, my 6th grade education in German is going to butcher this name, but it is from Fatima, or Fatima. She is from Sri Lanka. So again, if I'm pronouncing it wrong, I'm sorry. But first off, look at this bag. I got so excited to see this in the mailbox that I even treat this as part of my Christmas present. Because who wouldn't want to see those warm weather images in the middle of December and January? Even though it was 40 degrees today, which is not normal. So she sent a card, of course. And then she actually stitched me 2 things. One is some holly berries. And then her own cording, it looks like. And this possibly, since I have never seen it, it might be her own design. Or if not, it's a pretty blackwork design of a candle. And then she sent me a whole bunch of blues and teal DMC. So thank you. So now we'll get into haul and Christmas stuff. The one funny thing that I did ask for Christmas, well, it wasn't funny that I asked for it, but I asked for a box to keep all of my cards and stuff from the ATC group, so something like this. So I, told them that they're only the size of, greeting cards or the size of sports cards. This is the size of the box that I got. So I hope this ATC group and card group stays stitching for a long time, because it's going to take a long time to fill that up. But there's all that I've gotten so far. Somewhere in there is the little one. But it's going to take a while to fill that up. Maybe I'll have to join the Instagram ATC group. I'm sure I could keep other stitchy gifts that I get. I have a few things that I found at a thrift store. My Stitch from Stash did not work well. I've already dropped out of the group. Figured life's too short. And also too, other than these thrift store things, which is rare for me, the only big purchases I'm going to do is in April with the Flash Craft sale. So, I did find 2 books one time we went. The first one is a Berenstain Bear book, mainly for reminiscing and remembering that the Berenstain Bears. Why not? There is some cute seasonal patterns. If I am really desperate for a seasonal pattern, like that fall one. As our summer friends fly away, we gather in some friends that stay. So he's waving goodbye to the birds, and she's bringing in the flowers. And here they are flying a kite, and of course going down a 90s rainbow. A cute fireworks scene, running, baseball, hugging Papa Bear. And then a spring one, a day in spring, a cozy nap brings back memories of Mama's lap. So mainly it's one of those patterns that will just sit there in my stash with like a California raisin pattern. Just for memories. And then I also got a magazine. It was the Christmas issue of Just Cross Stitch from 1989. And I got this for a whopping 50 cents. And surprisingly, some of these patterns are not bad at all for the 80s. We have a chickadee pattern here that says, although we may be miles apart, there's something we must remember. Love gives wings to our hearts, so we'll always be together. Aww. I always make fun of them, but sappy verses are nice, aren't they? Plus, who doesn't like chickadees? But the main reason I got this magazine was for this chart, which I'll probably never stitch, but I thought it was nice, and if I ever want to, I liked this lamppost. So again, it isn't bad. There are something written on these street signs, but you can't make them out. Could be neat to put your childhood home address on there or something. And since I mentioned patterns to remember, I thought this was funny in the magazine. There was a whole page advertisement for every single California Raisins book. And look at all those California Raisins you can stitch. Who thought those guys would be popular just from an advertising? But my major thrift store haul was just earlier this week. And it is a wooden sewing box. Oops, that's the back of it. And I got this for a whopping $2.99. The inside has a little pocket and a pin holder and a drawer that you can take out. Solid wood. Beautiful. The only thing that's not beautiful about it is the carpet or the couch cushion that they have inside it. So I have to figure out how to get that out and put it in with a stitched piece. It looks like it's glued in here. And I guess I could take, it is the same dimensions as this, so I'm wondering if I just somehow pop them both out, it would work. But it was too beautiful to pass up. And I believe I have a pattern that will work. It's a funny pattern because I'm a funny person. It is from, I was going to do this anyway, just as a humor thing. But it is from a little flyer called Cross Stitch Crazy, and it is this one right here. It is Certified Cross Stitch Crazy. and it says official member, and then it has a phone number that, according to my mom, was actually a cross-stitch, like a sewing helpline back in the day, and then support group. So what I thought would be cute is to add, instead of this telephone number that may not work anymore, is to add all of the different groups that I'm in. So add Flosstube, add Stitch Mania, Cross Stitch Finish Line, and like Instagram tag names. And then, but the idea is, you know, that's going to get dated, and some of those things may or may not go away, but yet that whole cross stitch design is dated to begin with. So I was going to do that anyway, and I think it should fit into this. I'm hoping. So we will see. So this is going to be a short and sweet video, but that's all right. So I have a smaller 2017 review. I didn't want to go through all the 50 questions and just make it short and sweet. I had 22 finishes for the year, which is amazing for me. It's the most that I think I've ever had in a year. 20 of them were smalls, and I'm going to add a slideshow at the end of all of the finishes in order, possibly in order, at the end to see all of them. But the most were ATCs, cards, and gifts, a couple magazine freebies that you get, and some other things. One was someone's give up that I acquired at, you guessed it, the Flash Craft Sale. I found this. I snagged the bag mainly because there was a pair of frame of Q snaps in it, and this was what was in the Q snaps. So just one color. She had 2 skeins of floss in there, so I figured why not finish it for her. She stitched all the way up to the middle of this E. And she also had a mistake in the E, so I don't know if that's why she gave it up or just other things happened. But I finished it. It is a good housewife pattern, and it was a photocopy to begin with, so I know good housewife patterns are rare, but I didn't feel comfortable reselling that pattern with it only being a photocopy. So I finished this as my first finish for 2017. And I found the frame the day I finished it at a Salvation Army. Fittingly. Not the same Salvation Army. Because like I said, those flash sales only last a weekend. And I did finish one BAP. I like that term. I think we should take it over on Instagram, just hashtag BAP, but because it seems like whenever I look at it, it's like a Japanese Justin Bieber, so I think it'd be funny if all these little Japanese girls singing, why are these cross-stitch patterns on here? But I did finish. My big finish of the year was my pillow. I know I've showed it many of times, but it's a proud accomplishment. From Amanda Gregory, that's my big finish for the year. I have had many starts and finishes, and many starts. I have no official give-ups from last year. Some are in the waiting room, but they're not dead. I had 2 BAP starts, the bell pull and the ABC tapestry. I started the bell pull in June or July. So that's that project or progress since June or July. I didn't keep much notes from last year. I'm trying to do better. And of course the ABC tapestry I just started last month. So I officially started it in 2017. And I believe I started the spring sampler in 2016, thinking I would get it done before spring of 2017, and that was a very lofty goal that would never work for anyone. So as I said, that's one of the patterns that's in the anger stage of the 7 stages of cross stitching. One thing that I did learn through 2017 is that I needed to add smalls into my rotation and cross stitch life, because all of the BAP work that I did would get me burnt out. So I would stitch on all of these big projects and never get anything finished. So I added a lot more small things in the mid-year to get the thrill of a finish more often. So as I just said, I started that the mid-year, so probably in June or July, if not August. So next year's totals are going to be interesting to see. So I do have a few 2018 goals. I'm going to do them as light goals because I don't want to get too frustrated with myself in 2019 if I didn't meet them. My first goal, which is working well for this month, is I'm doing a rotation, sort of. So I work on a BAP on the weekend, and then I work on smalls during the week. And that's been working well, except this weekend, because I don't want to work on that stupid spring sampler. And already this month I've had 3 finishes. So it is obviously working good. A lofty goal is to finish one of my BAPs, and the one that's most possible is the bell pull, but I'm not going to beat myself up if I don't finish it in time. I just made it to once I finish this trunk here, which just goes just a little bit over here more. I have like one more rotation, one more set of the rotating bands, and the trunk will be done, and I get to move on to part 2. And there are only 3 parts in it, so since this work is only from June and I probably didn't work on it very much, I had a tendency to work on something for a while and then leave it for a month. Now that I'll be working on it once a month, it should go a little bit faster. And my final goal, stitching related, is to get my sewing room organized and useful. Since I moved in here in 2010, I've never done anything with that room, so it's not even painted. It's just got storage stuff. I figure I'll live by myself, I might as well get it useful and looking nice. So that's about it from me. I will see you guys again in February. Again, I get confused. And stay tuned for the little slideshow of my finishes. And until next time, see you guys later. Bye.